about being with somebody who doesn't love you in the way that you can receive love or in the amount that's necessary for you to receive that love. Basically, somebody who's neglecting you in a relationship, even though they know exactly what it is that you need. The thing about being with them is that essentially you learn to love yourself less if you even love yourself at all, simply by way of giving yourself to somebody who don't love you, whether they don't love you at all or they don't love you adequately. And that's not even the biggest danger of being with somebody who emotionally neglects you. And for those who don't know what that is, emotional neglect in a relationship feels like you're more lonely while in a relationship with somebody than you were whenever you were single. Emotional neglect, because some of y'all don't even know if you're in a relationship where you are being emotionally neglected. You just feel like, oh, this is, not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nobody got it all together. Everybody go through stuff. Let me tell you real quick, if you feel any of these things, you know there's emotional neglect in your relationship. If you feel like no matter how well you communicate, no matter how much you show on your face and your body language that something is wrong, you're with a person who honestly just don't care. Or you have to question if they care. You have to question if they care. It's not a certainty. It's like maybe they do, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Even though you've exhausted each and every way, you know how to communicate, you pull from books, podcasts, you pull from elders or mentors, friends, ways to communicate and convey to this person what you need, and you still not sure if they even care. Like it's one thing if you don't know if they're going to do it. It's one thing if you don't know or you don't have the full confidence that things are going to get better. It's a whole nother thing if you have to question if they even care. If you have to question if they even care, more than likely, you're in an emotionally neglectful relationship. I call it suffering from relationship loneliness. And again, that's loneliness that's worse than even whenever you were single, because in a relationship, when you're actually presenting yourself to somebody, somebody has actually said, okay, I opt in, I volunteer to meet your emotional needs, and then they neglect you. It's a lot more rejecting. It's a lot more hurtful. It's a lot more of an abandonment. You see, whenever you're single and you ain't got nobody, in your bed, or you ain't got nobody to talk to, it makes sense. It's like it's not it's space there. There's like it's like a hunger pain, but it doesn't feel like food poisoning. I don't know if that makes making sense to anybody, but if you're in a relationship with somebody who's neglecting you, it feels like poison is there. Every time you look at them, every time you reach for or you make an effort for some type of connection or try to gain some type of understanding, some clarity, every time you do that, and they don't just give you, coming up short. They give you, I don't care. And the I don't care can come in different formats, by the way. It can be in the form of deflecting. It can be in the form of some type of combativeness. It can be in the form of telling you that you always want to argue, even though you're just trying to communicate your feelings. You see, a lot of people get it mixed up and think relationship loneliness is, just when you're not getting sex or just when y'all ain't talking this much. No, relationship loneliness is any time you can be right there in somebody's presence and you never felt more isolated physically with them. Now physically got somebody in your bed, but you feel isolated. Some of y'all have been here, some of y'all have not. So I'm trying to really break it down for those that can't necessarily relate because you haven't been there. God bless you. God bless you. But I think it's time for us to have a real conversation and not spare anybody's feelings about the dangers of emotional neglect. Again, I said this for those of y'all who are just coming in. When you allow somebody who don't love you to love you, essentially giving them the responsibility that they're not even stepping up to the plate for, when you give them that responsibility, which is really a privilege, you will eventually learn to love yourself less. Why would that happen? Because now you need to acclimate. Your soul can't be in combat constantly. It can't be in turmoil constantly. So at some point, it has to find equilibrium. And you see, we'll try to make things right, but if we stay in that situation long enough and we never make it right, at the end of the day, we're going to come to a place where we can at least tolerate it. And so the longer you stay with somebody who does not care to meet your emotional needs, in action form, by the way, not just, oh, I do care. No, 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 no. I'm talking about actually putting forth the effort. The closer you get to that place where it's just like, all right, I can tolerate this. And you'll learn to love yourself less because you can't love yourself at a level 10 and remain with somebody who loves you at a level 1 or 2. It won't be compatible. The frequencies will be off. But I'm going to tell you some of the dangers. One of the dangers of being with somebody who is emotionally neglectful is that you will lose hope in love. You'll lose hope in it. And you'll become that person that others say, don't go to her for advice because she's so cynical, she's so bitter, she's so this, that, and the other. And let me tell you something. I've seen those type of women, and I think they get a lot of flack. But honestly, I've never seen one of those women who did not have their own story of when they were in a relationship and somebody mishandled them. They were in a relationship and nobody cared about them. So they really coming from a place of genuine, authentic belief. But that belief came from a place of emotional neglect. And so it's more than just not being the person that people can come to for advice or anything like that. It's like you don't want to inherit such a belief because it's going to conflict with deep down what you know you want, what your soul truly yearns for. It's just something that made you feel like I can tolerate the reality a little bit better if I convince myself this is all that's out here. And therefore, I don't even need to get my hopes up. Now I can't get let down because I'm already expecting the disappointment in advance. It's only as good as this. It'll only get as good as that. And it's so long as you believe that's the case, how much do you really aim for? Do you really try to have the conversation about your emotional needs if you feel like, or if you come now to believe that no man can really meet your emotional needs? They're too much. You're asking for too much. They're unrealistic. It's just this is as good as it gets. No. Not only that, what are you modeling to your children? This is as good as it gets. Just be tired all the time. Just feel alone all the time. Even though you're in a relationship, feel alone all the time. Try to make up for it with gifts or achievement or education or something like that. But don't expect fulfillment in a relationship. That's what you'll model. And we know all of the things that come as a byproduct of that. Another danger of being in a relationship with somebody who is emotionally neglecting you, for those of you who do not know, and for those of y'all who are experiencing it now, you will eventually experience perpetual burnout. A lot of women today are tired. And I'm speaking from the outside in, so y'all tell me if I'm speaking facts or if I'm speaking fiction. Tell me straight up now. If I'm speaking facts, put facts. If I'm speaking fiction, let me know. I don't have a problem, tell me the truth. But you will, and this is based on what I've seen. I've been doing this over a decade now. You will experience perpetual burnout. And you'll be looking to blame it on everything else in your life. Oh, it's my job. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. The whole time, you're in a relationship where you're starved of the nutrients that you need. Maybe you didn't necessarily need those nutrients when you weren't giving somebody the responsibility or the opportunity to love you. But the moment that you started opening yourself up and the moment you start applying yourself to whatever that man needed, your soul now required certain nutrients to keep yourself going, not just in a relationship, but outside of the relationship as well. And so you will experience burnout. Where does the burnout come out? When am I just talking out the side of my mouth? No, the burnout comes from the stress. It comes from the discouragement every single day, the unlearning. At one point in time, you even wanted a relationship because you felt like that was something that you could have. You were worth it. It was out there for you. And now every day that you're with that person that's emotionally neglectful, you're unlearning everything that you're actually worth. The burnout comes not just from your emotional needs not being met, but in you now experiencing that, the sadness, the grief that comes with that belief in love and relationship. You're also overcompensating a lot of those times because that's the rebellion in a woman that doesn't like to give up. That's the rebellion in a woman that doesn't give up so easily. She'll overcompensate before she finally accepts that this is not going to happen. Not here. And so how do you overcompensate? You put your needs last too. And what you think is, well, if I put his first, he'll get to mine. If I do more to put his first, he'll get to mine on the back end, and then I'll be good. And you may not even do it consciously. You'll do it subconsciously. You do it subconsciously. So now here you are running around, being at his beck and call, whatever he needs, you got him, waking up in the middle of the night for whatever it is he might ask for, rubbing his back whenever you tired, whatever, your feet tired and everything else, but you still work a 9 to 5, pay half the bills, come home, clean the house. You do all of these things. The whole time you're emotionally already told you, stop dealing with this dude. He ain't no good. But you just so determined to fight it out and make it work and give him another chance. And now you're in this shame spiral from being with this guy, and you can't open up to them about what's going on with you, but you can't deny, you can't hide that you're not okay. And so you may have an extremely patient, loving friend that's able to say, girl, I see you ain't okay. Let me just, I'll be here whenever you get here. I'll be here whenever you get back on your feet spiritually. But a lot of people ain't down for that. So now you're a bad friend. Now you're saying things you don't mean. Now you're speaking in a tone that you don't mean to talk to, that you don't mean to speak in. And now you're snapping out. You having to apologize. But you're still not able to be your normal self. And that's just the friendship part. Another danger of being in an emotionally neglectful relationship, which is essentially trying to love on somebody and pour into somebody's cup who ain't pouring back into you, you're also probably not the best parent you could be. Now you're a lot more short patience with your child or children. Now you discipline them a lot more from your stress and emotions and frustration, as opposed to you want to make sure that you correct their behavior while giving them context, while teaching them and guiding them and developing them. See, that's the real you. But an emotionally neglectful relationship will strip you down to the survival mode you. And that's the biggest danger of being in an emotionally neglectful relationship. You become an emotionally neglectful person. You see, a lot of guys, and I was talking about this with a friend recently, grew up in a home or a society that said you can't show emotion, you can't do this. And essentially they got emotionally neglected in childhood. Now, the thing about childhood trauma like that is that it's our responsibility as an adult to sort that out before we get into a romantic relationship, even though it's not our fault that that's what happened to us. However, trauma is kind of like energy. It is created, but most times it's transferred from one party to the next. So when you got a person, you, even though you didn't grow up with this in childhood, you can incur the exact same thing that a lot of men incur, but in a relationship context, which I think is worse because in a childhood or whatever, it's like your parents became parents. Nobody was really ready for that. As a child, you didn't choose to be in that situation, but as an adult in a romantic relationship, you did choose to be in a situation. You thought that you evaluated this person. He came and said, okay, I can be this for you. And then you had the full opportunity to leave because neither of y'all are really dependent on each other for survival, or at least you shouldn't be. And you stay there and let the trauma compound. Like I said, the video was paused, but hopefully y'all hear this next part. Because when I've talked about this somewhat in the past, I've gotten questions, D, why is it that a guy would do this? Well, if he don't want to love on me, if he don't want to meet my needs, and why even in a relationship with me? There's a couple of reasons. One, a man may do this intentionally because he's pulled the rug from under your feet. You came in believing in love and all these different things, but for some reason he wants to control you, teach you a lesson, make you dependent on him. So now if he can strip you down to your survival mode, you will be dependent on him. Now you'll lose your friends. Now you'll have your job, your career in jeopardy, and now he has more control. Then you have some guys who would do this because honestly, they just lack the competence. Some guys, they just don't understand. So there's always going to be a disconnect. You're going to be isolated because honestly, y'all were never equally yoked to begin with. His potential and you, your reality, were always equally yoked. But his reality was down here. So you were bound to feel that isolation that was honestly there from the very beginning. But then there's another reason why. And this is what I need everybody to understand. A lot of guys will emotionally neglect you because they're using you as a stepping stone to the next woman. So while they're with you, they're going to reserve their best self. They're going to give you the bare minimum. They're going to give you just enough to keep you from leaving, but never enough to truly fulfill you. It's like breadcrumbing, but it's over the span of the relationship. Actually, it is breadcrumbing, but it's in a serious, real relationship over the course of the relationship. So instead of just like the dating phase where he just wants to breadcrumb you to, get a little bit of vagina or something like that, it's like in a long-term relationship, he may want 10 years, 15 years to slowly breadcrumb you and give you just enough to keep you hanging on. And then he'll move on to the next person whenever he's done. He'll discard you in a sense. Once he's gotten what he wants from you, that stepping stone, that training ground, that warm up for the real thing, then he'll go to the next woman, and now he'll apply everything that you were asking him for that he never gave you, or act like you had to pull teeth in order to get. Now he'll pull forth his best effort. Even if it's not that good, he'll pull forth his best effort. The money he acted like he couldn't spend, the romance he acted like he couldn't, he wasn't capable of, the communication that he acted like you always were arguing and wanting too much by even wanting him to do, the patience that you were asking. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but then you'll see this next woman bragging about all the things that you like, hold on, I was asking him to do this. I was asking him, why was he? But where was this when I was? I don't know how many of y'all have ever been in that situation or seen that situation play out for somebody else. But this is why you cannot be, it's two types of women. And I talked about this in my master class, how to stop being a man's internship, because that's all it is. This whole situation is just an internship. He's going to stop one place, get the tools and equipment necessary to go into the next place where he really wants to have his long-term career. But there's two types of women. And that's the woman that a man knows is going to prepare him for the next woman. And then there's the woman that a man says, I must come prepared for. And again, I'm not going to go in depth here because I did so in my masterclass. Now, this is a previous masterclass I did. So if you want to catch the encore before it comes down, and again, it's absolutely free, where I broke down how men see those types of women and how you can make sure you're never, ever the type of woman that prepares a man for the next woman. Click the link that you see pinned down here in the comments. Maybe you guys see it on my YouTube or wherever else, wherever you see the link. How to stop being a man's internship, so you never have to build another man up for somebody else. A man either comes prepared or he stays out of your way. It's really that simple. And that's like 45 minutes of free game, by the way. Again, put your money away. But I saw a lot of y'all have missed out on the last time. The next time it comes down, it's going for good. So don't miss it this time. It's also at the link in the caption or description or what have you. But moral of the story is this. When you're in a relationship where there's neglect, think about being in a home. Think about being in a situation where you're not going to get the nutrients. You're not going to get the food. You're not going to get fed the way that you need to get fed. You're essentially going to be starved. What's going to happen to your energy? What's going to happen to you at some point over the long term? The exact same thing happens in a relationship. A part of you is going to die. And there is a such thing as a permanent consequence to a temporary decision or entertaining a temporary person. And so you got to keep that in mind, that if you want something real, you can't entertain people who at best had intentions for something temporary. But those are just my thoughts. So I'm your internet big brother trying to look out per usual. If you got something of value from this, all I ask is that you share it to somebody else. If you're a believer in truth, then be a vessel of that truth by hitting the share button. Wherever you see it down there, should be some little arrow or something like that. Hit the share button so somebody on your timeline can also get blessed by this the same way that you did. And if you want to catch my masterclass, how to stop being a man's internship, again, you can jump right over there now since we're done with this. Click that link that you see pinned. It's also in the caption or description or whatever you see, a link that says how to stop being a man's internship or stop being his internship. Click that link. More free game just for y'all. I love y'all. Y'all be good. Peace.